Back in 1986, a little boy with a monkey tail hit Japanese television screens, literally marking a revolution in anime. And you know what? Long before the universe-shattering battles or Super Saiyans entered the fray, Dragon Ball was all about being a fantasy adventure filled with martial arts and slapstick comedy. The series started winning hearts in no time and eventually found its way to global audiences. Thankfully, the English dub of Dragon Ball was pretty solid, and millions of fans got to witness Goku's journey. See, we know that most of the time an English adaptation of an anime messes things up a bit, but compared to most, Dragon Ball tried to remain faithful to the original. However, there were still some changes that had to be made in order for Dragon Ball to fit into the standards of American broadcast and make it palatable for the target audience. If you look at it casually, you won't find major changes, but maybe a few tweaks here and there, and the English version of Dragon Ball did reshape parts of Akira Toriyama's classic version just a bit. And no matter how quietly they did these modifications, they can be discerned upon digging deeper. So that's what we did. Today, we're checking out the 9 biggest differences between the original Japanese Dragon Ball and its English adaptation. It's going to be a good one, so let's gather some Dragon Balls.
Removal of nudity and violence. The first relevant English dub of Dragon Ball was released by Funimation Productions in 1995 and initially aired in syndication before being cancelled for low ratings. But then, it went on being adapted and modified by other studios over time, and various digital cosmetic edits were done to remove sexually explicit content and bloodshed. For instance, when Goku would dive into the water to catch a fish for dinner, he'd be naked in the Japanese version, but Funimation added a digital splash of water around his groin to avoid that. Even when he was supposed to be naked on other occasions, the dubbed version created digital underwear for the character. They also snipped out the part where he urinated in the water before catching the fish with his tail, and in the Harmony Gold dub, the sequence where Goku skinny dipped to catch a giant fish was removed entirely, along with the peeing. Of course, every English version of Dragon Ball completely cut out the part where Bulma shot Goku with a gun to abide by the non-violent rules of Western children's programs. Changes to General Blue. If you watch the original anime, you might remember General Blue, a high-ranking officer in the Red Ribbon Army and the leader of the Blue Corps. And honestly, the addition of his psychic powers made him one of the most compelling villains in Dragon Ball. However, Akira Toriyama chose to depict him in a rather creepy way to cash in on exaggerated comedic tropes. Sadly, that often meant implying he was homosexual and had a nearly predatory fixation on young boys. There were even scenes where General Blue was referred to as the gay officer in the Red Ribbon Army by Krillin. These depictions wouldn't have been allowed by the English adaptations, and thus his character was heavily modified. Krillin commented on how he was weird or cowardly instead of attacking his sexuality. The most prominent change can be seen in the sequence where General Blue encountered Obacha-man in Penguin Village. In the original show, he was infatuated with this childlike robot, which was altered in the English script as him mistaking the robot for his missing brother Samuel to justify the inappropriate affection. Objectification of women. Oh boy, anime back then could have some seriously scandalous moments. There was one scene where Goku accidentally went as far as lifting Bulma's skirt to check if she had a tail. He even removed her underwear while she was sleeping to check out the tail thing, and all of this was passed off as an innocent misunderstanding of human biology. While that is the kind of thing a confused child might do, it was kinda messed up to show, and I'm actually glad that the English dubs removed these scenes. Sadly, the misogynistic portrayal of women didn't stop there, though. When General Blue approached to attack Goku and Krillin, Bulma tried to be the savior after he used telekinesis to immobilize Krillin. And how did she do that? Well, she tried to use her charm to seduce him, and boy oh boy, the moves and gestures she did to distract General Blue were, well, problematic. Dialogue was frequently localized rather than literally translated. While adapting Dragon Ball for English-speaking audiences, it would have been nearly impossible to go for a word-for-word translation. Thus, the respective studios chose to make many conversations localized in nature so that the show would be more relatable to Western audiences. Moreover, no matter what, there was always a cultural gap present, and to tap into the humorous energy of the show, the English dub had to trade Japanese puns and cultural references with completely rewritten jokes or conversations. However, the overall tone and energy of the scene were kept intact. A good example of this is the joke surrounding Oolong's expulsion from school. In the Japanese version, he revealed that he was expelled for stealing his teacher's undergarments. However, the English dub changed this to stealing his teacher's papers, and even by removing the sexual joke altogether, they managed to preserve the idea that Oolong was kicked out for misbehaving. No drinking or cigarettes. In the original Japanese Dragon Ball, the adults often consumed beer, wine, and sake, a traditional Japanese rice wine, in social gatherings or for relaxation. For example, there were frequent scenes where we saw Master Roshi enjoying an alcoholic beverage at his seaside home, Kame House. He was even shown smoking a couple of times, but in order to remove any conventional tobacco products, smoke trails were often removed or edited in Western TV broadcasts. Moreover, in several scenes, alcoholic beverages were recolored or relabeled to look like non-alcoholic drinks, and sometimes they were even passed off as juice or milk. Gen Fukunaga of Funimation said, "We want to censor as little as possible. If we can convert those scenes with creative adjustments, we'll do it. Otherwise, they have to be cut for the edited/broadcast version." General Blue's banter was completely changed. Turns out, General Blue went through some major changes, if we consider all the tiny ones and bring them together. Apart from the alterations we already talked about, there's another memorable sequence that was completely changed in the English dub. In the episode titled The Pirate Treasure, General Blue fights Krillin inside a pirate cave. In Akira Toriyama's original version, General Blue was portrayed as someone who was an arrogant Red Ribbon Army general who constantly mocked his opponent with straightforward insults. But in the English dub, this banter was completely rewritten. Rather than translating the original dialogue, the scriptwriters decided to add new lines like, "I've seen Girl Scouts fight better than you," and General Blue repeatedly called Krillin Diaper Man. He even compared Krillin's bloody nose to someone throwing red paint on the Mona Lisa. I guess this is one of the clearest examples of how the English dub localized dialogue rather than trying to convert it word by word. In the Japanese version, the quarrel was more direct and aggressive, with General Blue targeting Krillin's appearance. The opening and ending themes were re-recorded. I understand this might have been a necessary change, and it might not have affected the story, but it is still worth mentioning. The English version of Dragon Ball decided to entirely change the Japanese vocals used in Dragon Ball's opening and ending credits. Sure, the memorable opening, Makafushigi Adventure, retained its upbeat style, but the Japanese lyrics were replaced with English ones. Performed by Jimmy Tunnell, this rendition was titled Mystical Adventure, and it was produced by Carl Finch. The ending theme, Romantic Ageru Yo, performed by Daphne Gear in English, made these tiny tweaks that gave the English adaptation a distinct musical personality. As a result, many Western fans grew up associating Dragon Ball with these English songs and didn't get the chance to appreciate the original Japanese performances. Interestingly, the original Japanese opening is so famous that its singer, Hiroki Takahashi, recalled that he heard some kids sing Makafushigi Adventure one summer. He said it was a really touching moment. It's been decades, and personally, I still love the Japanese songs more. The English dub tweaked the musical presentation. Apart from the opening and ending credits, the English Dragon Ball made other musical changes to the show. Funimation kept Shunsuke Kikuchi's classic background score, but there were episodes in the original show that featured various vocal insert songs. There were around 15 such musical cues, but the English one either shortened them or changed them by overlapping them with dialogue. Let me give you an example. In episode 87, the Japanese Dragon Ball featured the insert song Urufu Hurricane, which translates to Wolf Hurricane in English. However, in the English dub, this song was removed entirely. Once again, I know these aren't major changes that dramatically altered our Dragon Ball experience, but don't you think, somewhere, the essence of Goku's childhood was lost in translation? The no balls joke was removed. As we already mentioned, American censors had a great time chopping up the original Japanese version of Dragon Ball, and of the many jokes that were removed, the no balls one happened to be the most popular. In the second episode of Toriyama's Dragon Ball, titled The Emperor's Quest, Goku was shown to be naive enough to think that Bulma had male genitals too. The only other human Goku had ever known was his grandpa Gohan, and he actually believed that everyone around him had the same body parts regardless of their sex. He was shocked to learn that Bulma didn't have any, and that reaction became one of the series' earliest and most well-known jokes. In my opinion, unlike the tail gag where he removed her underwear, this could have been seen as a subtle way of teaching children about human anatomy, but since the scene involved child nudity, the English TV broadcast removed it and didn't even attempt to localize it. Probably for the best, but still. Alright guys, that's all we got for you today. In hindsight, it's actually good that the English version of Dragon Ball didn't introduce any massive changes and stuck as closely as possible to Akira Toriyama's idea. But then again, no matter how subtly they made the alterations, it did override Toriyama's creative vision, though the overall narrative itself wasn't harmed. I guess that's why the original version just hits a little different. Anyways, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more stuff like it. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time.